Hey, what's up everybody? It's TheHyphenate here, and today we're going to talk about an awesome macro lens for Sony Alpha cameras, the Sony FE 90mm f2.8 macro G lens. Now in this video, we're going to focus specifically on using this lens for macro photography. This lens is so much fun to use, especially if you're really shooting macro or very tight subjects. It really does create a beautiful image. Now, before I go more in depth on this lens, I do want to do a few shots here in my podcast studio on these smaller objects, this Funko Pop and then this Lego. That way you can actually see how close I can get with the lens on these small objects and really how great the images look. After I do a few shots on that, then we'll get more in depth and I'll show you some other examples. So here I'm going to be using this lens with the Sony a7C camera. Okay, so I know you guys can probably barely see this, but right here where my finger is, there is a tiny small Batman Lego. I'm gonna put on a little LED light just to give it a little bit more light because in this studio it's not very bright, and I wanna make sure that he's pretty well lit and I don't have my ISO set too high. Now at the moment, this Lego is about 6-7 inches away from the lens. I'm shooting an autofocus ISO 2000 f2.8 shutter speed at 1/160th. I focus on his mouth and you can see that being this close to the subject at f2.8, even a slight amount of depth difference is out of focus. Now this is awesome, but if you're shooting something like a Lego, you probably want more of his body in focus as well. Now I'm gonna change the aperture to f10 and change the ISO to 25,600 so that way the lighting is similar. And now you can see that a slight depth difference doesn't get out of focus. When you're shooting something this small and up close, you probably want to increase your f-stop, but again, that means you have to increase your ISO or just increase the power of your light source. Right now, this is just for fun, but when I'm shooting more professionally, I try to keep my ISO lower than 3200. So I definitely have more lights and increase the light so that way I can get the proper exposure that I want without having a lot of noise from the increased ISO. All right, now we're gonna shoot this Mandalorian Funko Pop. Again, we're gonna turn on this little light. All right, first I'm gonna stick with the last settings that I had with the Lego, which is at f10. Again, this has ISO 25,600, not an ISO I would actually use in a professional setting. But even at that, look at how clear and sharp the image looks. It's so crisp and shows so much more than what I can see with my eyes looking at it up close. All right, now we're gonna go back to the first settings, which is f2.8 and ISO 2000. And then again, now with the lens being more wide open, more is out of focus. Just look at Baby Yoda. He's super out of focus, even though he's so close to the front of that helmet. And this is with me being just about a foot away from the Funko Pop. Now I want to show you guys the minimum focusing distance on this lens. So we're going to get as close as we can to the Baby Yoda and take a photo as close as we can get with it in focus. So here you can see how close I am. I'm focusing on the nose, shooting at f2.8. And now I'm shooting at f10. ISO 25,600. Again, shooting professionally, I would use more lighting so I don't have to increase my ISO so much. Now I'm gonna show you guys more examples of photos I've taken with this lens while also going more over the specs. The Sony 90mm f2.8 macro G lens is a telephoto lens with a 1:1 magnification ratio. To really utilize that 1:1 ratio, you wanna get as close to the minimum focusing distance as possible, which is roughly about 11 inches. This lens also has OSS image stabilization built into it. It has a rounded 9-blade diaphragm, which contributes to a really pleasing background blur that is buttery smooth with very nice bokeh. Now this is a focus by wire system, but the manual focus is actually really good. One of the unique features about this lens is that you can easily go from autofocus to manual focus with the clutch. All you gotta do is just pull the clutch down and now you're in manual focus. And as you rotate for the focus, it actually gives you markings that tell you your distance as well as magnification ratio. And then if you want to go back to autofocus, bring the clutch back up. Now, when it comes to the autofocus on this lens, it's pretty good. It's not really up to par with Sony's most recent lenses in the last several years, but overall, it's still very workable. Now, this is both the case in video and photo. Now, on the side of the lens, you'll see a custom button. You'll also see a switch that allows you to specify what range you want the autofocus to work in. All the way to the right is 0.5 meters to 0.28 meters. In the middle, you have an infinity to 0.5 meters, and then you have full. Now, if you know that the subject you're shooting is in one of those specified settings, having the switch on one of those actually does improve the autofocusing system. When you're in full, it does take a little bit longer. Underneath that, you also have a switch to turn on and off the optical steady shot, so the image stabilization. The front of the lens has a 62mm filter thread, and this lens is designed for full frame cameras. Now, if you use this on an APS-C camera or in APS-C mode, then your focal length will change from 90 millimeters to 135 millimeters. Now, when it comes to build quality, this thing is built really nice. It's a little heavy, but it feels very solid, very premium. The majority of the lens is metal, including the focus ring. The lens also has a nano AR coating that helps reduce surface reflections, flare, and ghosting for increased contrast and color rendering in strong lighting conditions. Now, when it comes to the actual image quality of this lens, it is top notch. It's probably one of Sony's sharpest lenses. It's insanely crispy, and if you zoom in or crop closely to any photo, you'll see extremely clear detail. Now, you can use this lens for video. You can also use it for portrait photography, but I think this lens really shines in what it's meant for, which is macro photography. So there you guys have it. That's the Sony FE 90mm f2.8 macro G lens. Again, this lens is a blast to use. I highly recommend it, especially if you're doing macro work. If you guys are interested in getting this lens, I do have links in the description where you can purchase it. It doesn't change the price you get it at, but it does help this channel. Please make sure to drop a like on this video, drop a comment below if you have any questions, and please make sure to subscribe. I have a lot more videos coming soon. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.